episode 8. I am your host, Ken Doolittle, joined as always by resident Packers fan Michael Burke. Taking a bit of beatings on his locks lately, but luckily the Packers survived this weekend, so he's winning in some regard at least. We had a hell of a weekend there, bud, on the NFL, the college turf, and also at the blackjack tables. So why don't we talk about that? The holidays are a nice time to get together, friends and family, and gamble the hell out of every dollar you have, right? Are we up or down? What's up?
We are currently down pretty bad. It was a rough weekend for me, but it was great to see everybody, bringing the holiday cheer and everything, hang out with some old friends. But from a financial standpoint, it did not go well.
Yeah, and let me tell you something, and I tweeted this earlier in the week. Whether we win or whether we lose, the camaraderie at a blackjack table is unbeatable. When you got 5 or 6 people that you know covering a blackjack table, the energy is unreal.
Yeah, I agree. And it really swings the momentum on how people play hands and just the enthusiasm. If you got a group of guys that are just excited for each other to win money, even if you do lose a hand and other guys win at the table, it really is a positive boost to hopefully coming out on top by the end of the night.
Yeah. So, really, really interesting weekend as far as NFL lines panned out. We had our Thanksgiving parlay that we have every year, and, it worked out almost perfectly. We hit 2 of them, and we really missed one of the ones that we were kind of the most confident in was the Cowboys laying 7.5. We probably should have known in retrospect that 7.5 was a bit of a trap. That line probably should have been 6.5 or 7, but the fact that it was 7.5 made me think that they wanted us to take the Raiders, and we could not have been any further from the truth. We were feeling great after that backdoor Lions cover. I was ready to come on here this week taunting you about wanting to take the Bears and how I saved the parlay, and then all of it went to shit. Didn't matter. The Cowboys blew it up. Why would we ever bet on the Cowboys again?
I think we just had no trust in the Raiders going on the road. Cowboys had the better record going in, playing at home. Probably the better players too. But great credit to the Raiders. They came out, they stuck it to them, slung the ball around with Derek Carr, and they came out on top and took our parlay chances with them.
Yeah, unfortunately, we nailed these other 2 games, and we just couldn't hit home on the Cowboys game. We couldn't have been more right about the Bills. It really was a Buffalo breakout. We predicted the Big Diggs game, which we got. We predicted that the Bills would kind of run the cover off the ball, which they did. We predicted that the Lions would hang around just enough to cover that 3.5 or 3 in that game, which they did miraculously.
I was sweating eating Thanksgiving dinner watching those highlights.
You're sitting at the Thanksgiving table, game casting this Lions game, eating our chocolate pie and cupcake dessert, sweating our butts off, trying to make sure they got that cover. And the Bears, as cowardly as ever, kneeling on the 1-yard line to let the time run out, kick the field goal, win the game, but not cover. We were feeling great. And then that Cowboys game, we really never had a shot. And that's the unfortunate thing about laying 7.5 is as soon as they go down by a touchdown late in the game, we're screwed because they're not going to win by 8 at that point. Best case, they're going to win by 7. You almost need overtime, a field goal, and then a pick 6 or something for us to have any shot at covering. So that was unfortunate. But another game that ended at 7.5 was unfortunately for you, the lock of the year. And I'm not going to say any more. I'm just going to let you take it away from there.
Yeah, I convinced myself, and I had a very good feeling. I know a lot of the country did as well at Ohio State, being able to cover on the road at their arch rival, Michigan. Like a lot of people, I felt that Ohio State was riding the momentum. They looked like the hottest team in the country going in. We're dominating teams left and right. Michigan showed a lot of signs of uncertainty still, even at this point in the season, going 11-1. Obviously, with the biggest game on their schedule to date, Michigan lost that game. They blew it. And history, again, did not go well for Michigan, obviously losing 11 straight going into this past weekend. Jim Harbaugh never beating Ohio State as Michigan head coach. I really thought that Ohio State was in the driver's seat here and they were going to control their own destiny and get to the playoff. Unfortunately, Michigan really stuck it to us immediately in that game, and it was never really close. They dominated in the trenches from start to finish. I think their starting running back had 5 touchdowns, which was a Michigan record against Ohio State.
Yep.
Harbaugh gets a big win, and to all of the viewers who followed me and trusted me on this. I apologize. I was wrong. I did let some heart and emotion get in the middle of me making this pick because I really do not like Michigan. I don't like Ohio State either, but of the two, I'd rather take Ohio State than Michigan. I don't know why. It's been a long-standing grudge in my life for a very long time, which I can't even get to the beginning of describing why it's like that. But credit to Michigan. They get a chance now to play for a Big Ten championship and go into the playoff if they end up beating Iowa on Saturday. But goes to show that you don't know everything. And I took my slice of humble pie. I got a lot of scrutiny over this, but we're going to get back at it this week. Unfortunately, I won't be making any more locks of the year. I think I used up my ticket already. So we're going to.
Yeah, well, luckily for you, it's already December, so you can make another lock of the year in 31 days.
Yeah, we're going to be very, very cautious over the next lock of the
year. You only get one of them, so you better get this one right. If you get 2 locks of the year wrong in a row, that's trouble. But Michigan looked like the better team from the gate in that one, unfortunately, and I was hopeful for our pick the whole way. Ohio State kind of got it together in the middle there, but from really the first drive, they looked like the better team, so I was hoping we weren't cooked, but unfortunately we were. Lost in all this, the beauty of a football game played in a little sprinkling of snow on the field is just unbeatable. You watch these games going into December, and you see the little sprinkling of white dust on the field, and it looks beautiful. It gets you in the spirit for the right time of year. That's what I like about these football games, man. This is a great time of year for the sport, and especially these college games that are played outside. I don't love college football, but the aesthetics of that one were pretty good. So unfortunately, we lost a lot of money on that one. But hey, we look good doing it. So,
yeah, and as the weather gets colder, it really starts to separate the contenders from the pretenders, and the teams that are truly here to stay. You're going to see them start to rise a little bit in the next couple of weeks. I know we're going to get a chance to talk about that a little bit with a lot of favorites pushing for playoff spots, but really with the weather getting colder and the season starting to wind down to critical crunch time games, trying to make playoff spots, trying to win rivalry games, make a conference championship, whatever it is, whether it's college or pro. I think you're going to see a lot of favorites start to turn the tide a little bit going forward.
Yeah, well, that's something interesting. I know you're talking on a college level. It's something interesting to look at in the NFL too, transitioning back to the NFL. Dogs were 72% in November. So for the last 4, maybe 5 weeks of games, dogs have covered an astounding 72% of the time, which is crazy and it's absurd. And we saw this effect last week. So what happens is throughout the course of a season, dogs cover, favorites cover, dogs cover, favorites cover, and it's more like a roller coaster, right? But you usually don't see one side get above 60% or 62%-ish. Usually when that happens, they start to adjust the lines and they come back down. This month, it didn't matter. They made those favorite lines a little bit lower and they were still covering. So last week you saw it. Other than the Thanksgiving games, where one of the lines, the Cowboys, was 7.5, and other than the Patriots game where the line got up to 7 by kickoff, every other line last week was were favored by under a field goal. So they were trying their hardest to get favorites to cover, and yet they still didn't. We still had a lot of dogs cover last week. They closed the month at 72%. I think they're at about 61% on the season. So my question to you and kind of my statement is, it's time to play the favorites, isn't it? Because the odds makers are going to adjust these lines. They're not going to let the season finish with dogs at 72% rate. And you're going to say, well, the odds makers can't control the outcomes of games. No, they can't, but they can control where the lines go. And they can control that a team like the Rams over the Jaguars probably should be, a 16-point favorite. And this week they're only 13 because they need this number to even out, right? So shouldn't we be betting the favorites?
I think we definitely have to start to take a look at that. You're going to start to see a lot of, at least in the NFL, teams not necessarily tank, but they're starting to play for draft picks now and not necessarily playoff spots. So the teams that are still alive, I think they're going to be favored with lines that look very, very juicy from Vegas. You definitely have to start considering them. I wish I had followed the dog train through the month of October and November. My locks record could be significantly better than it is. But I think I'm going to start to play the favorites here going to the last month of the regular season. I think it could really help us out financially. And obviously with the teams on the field, they're trying to play for playoff spots and a chance to win a Super Bowl. So Vegas is going to be aware of that. and they're going to set the lines accordingly. So just be cognizant when you're reviewing games, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. And, we're going to see that this week. Another trend I want to look at is the over-unders, which I want to tune into here. But, moving forward, I think we're really going to get into the crux of the season where we want to hit these favorites. We might want to take a look at totals because they're adjusting. But basically, you want to take a look that the books want to make sure that things even out 50-50 by the end of the year. And they'll do that by adjusting the lines. So some week 13 trends that I'm looking into. Number one is the favorites, obviously. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at them as we go. Unders as well is something I'm taking a look at this week. So last year we had a historic trend of unders hit. And I don't think we've talked about this. So I kind of want to see your input on it. But last year, I'm sorry, not unders, overs. Last calendar year or last NFL season, we had a tremendous amount of NFL overs hit. Do you have any reason, and I know the answer to that, well, I know what I think is the answer. Any input as to why you think an outstanding amount of overs hit early in the NFL season last year?
Last year, I'm going to say it's because you had empty stadiums and road teams had a significant, better advantage of communicating with their team. So without that home atmosphere and the home energy with the fans that they bring and disrupting the communication of the road team, the chances of executing plays were significantly better. And obviously the teams that could score points and run and have good offenses, they were going to put up points, which I think led to a lot of overs hitting last year, that's for sure. But now you got fans back in the stands. You've got teams pushing for the playoffs. The fans are going to get rowdy, and it's going to become tougher and tougher for road teams, especially now that stadiums are now full capacity, I think, across the board. So,
so look, man, you nailed it, right? Overs were hitting last year early in the season because there were no fans. There was no way for the fans to disrupt opposing teams. And so teams were coming in here fully equipped to play their offense, and they were scoring points like crazy. And the home teams obviously weren't affected because they were going to score points no matter what. And you saw this barrage of overs hit for really the first 10 weeks of last season. Then it adjusted, right? And they went down. This season, I think they've over-adjusted that. And I think they're getting to the point where it's over-adjusted too much at this point, where we've seen some high over games. So they're moving the totals up. But these totals are just way too high. Like, look at a team like the Chiefs. They've went under. Their totals have been like 55, 55, 54 the last 3 weeks. They've all gone under. So I want to take a look at unders this week in high-flying teams in weird spots. So number one, okay, let's look at this Thursday night game. This is where we want to hit on first. Cowboys up to -5 at New Orleans at this point. Total sits at 47.5. My lock is going to be this game goes under 47.5. The Cowboys are playing their third game in 12 days, so they're the better offense that's now playing 3 games in a time where teams normally play 1. That's huge. They didn't look great on Thanksgiving. I know they have some of their weapons coming back, but Zeke's not 100%. Dak is still not 100%. He had a pitching injury this year. And their receivers are clearly not 100% because they just missed last week. CD went out at halftime. No, I'm sorry, that was the week before. But CD was out. Cooper was out. All right. And they just don't have the firepower to get the ball down the field. And then the Saints on the other side, I think they're starting Taysom Hill, aren't they? Taysom Hill is not an NFL quarterback. I'm sorry for all the Taysom defense.
Yeah, they're starting Taysom Hill. I saw that earlier. He's going to try and run the football as much as he can, so that's going to really keep the
even
clock.
Better, right? Taysom's going to run. The Saints are going to try to run. I don't know if Kamara's in or not. It doesn't matter to me. If he's not, then they're less explosive, so that's even better for this play. But even if he is in, I like it under 47.5. Saints are going to try to run. Dallas, I don't know, can move the ball down the field well enough. I know you're going to say both defenses aren't great, but both defenses have had their moments where they have been really great. 47.5 is a bit too high for this game on a Thursday night for me, so my lock is on the under. You're taking the dog in this case, going against everything we just said about the faves.
Yep, I just feel that because of this, it's going to be a shorter game, and I do like the dog at home at getting 5 points. I think the Saints bounced back from an absolute debacle of a game against Buffalo last Thursday night, and I think they keep it close. I think it's a field goal kind of game.
All right. So Burke likes the dogs to cover this one. I like it going under. Is this a good Thursday night game? Are we into this one? I'm all right with it. I don't know.
It's better than Jaguars Texans, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than some of the nonsense we've been fed the past couple weeks. And we were totally right, man. We said those Thursday NFL games were going to be total ass. They were just as advertised. Ass meets cheeks in a lot of those games. They were terrible. The Bears-Lions was everything we could have dreamed of. The Raiders-Cowboys had two teams with over 100 yards in penalties, which was insane. And I don't even know if anybody watched the Bills-Saints game.
At least that game of the three went to overtime, so you kind of had.
Yeah, I mean, it went to overtime. It was competitive.
But
man, it was Sean Hockley day from start to finish. It was unreal.
It was almost unwatchable.
Almost unwatchable. Definitely unwatchable for those of us that lost money on the Cowboys on that one. But that's our picks for Thursday night. Let's move to Monday night too, because I think this is the game of the week. We have the Pats at the Bills. The Bills only catching 2.5 at home. You might tell me that this line is wrong. I think it's priced totally appropriately. I think the Bills should be favored by less than a field goal at home. The Patriots have this insane momentum. They might be the better team right now. The Bills have been very inconsistent. I know they rolled last week, but they've been too inconsistent. I don't know that you can get me to take the Pats here, because if you're picking them, basically you're shorting this game one way or another. You're not necessarily picking one team, you're picking against another team, I think. So you can either short the Bills because of their uncertainty and take the Pats plus 2.5, or you could short the Pats' insane momentum that they've been having and take the Bills minus 2.5 and say, wow, look at this value. I'm getting the Bills at home in a primetime game, laying less than a field goal. I really don't know which way to go. I'm curious to see if we get to 3 by this one on kickoff. But I don't really have a lean. If I'm anywhere on this one, I'm probably on the under because of what we've been talking about. You got any lean on this?
I'm going to discuss this later in my locks. I'm going to be leaning on.
Sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah, it's all right. But I'd like the Bills in this situation. I think the night crowd in Buffalo is going to be absolutely rowdy for what we were discussing earlier, which is a good talk about taking the under here as well. But I think Mac Jones being a rookie quarterback, I know he's had a unbelievable stretch of games, but this may be the toughest environment he plays in all season. It's a primetime night game in Buffalo, which doesn't happen often. So those fans are going to get nice and rowdy for that. It's a divisional game with first place on the line. Bills are trying to take it back, and I think they hold serve at home.
Yeah, but I know you say that. And I don't totally disagree, but I also saw about 2 months ago Mac Jones go head-to-head with Tom Brady in a slew of a monsoon game on a primetime game and basically almost come out on top, minus a Nick Folk shank at the end. He comes out on top. Tre'Davious White is out for the Bills. I think that's a pretty big deal. They don't play a lot of man coverage, the Bills, so it's not like a momentous loss for them, but they play enough man and they play enough schemes that are like reliant on him that I think that's a pretty big deal. So the Pats run the ball enough, and the Bills give up enough on the run game to say that, maybe this game does go under just because of the sheer volume that the Pats will be running with. I don't know that you can get me to take either side of this. If I'm going to lay anything, I'm probably going to lay the Bills minus 2.5, but I'm probably going to wait till kickoff to see if that one gets to 3. I think this has got to be the game of the week, right? This is a division game, and not only a division game, but probably like a number 1 seed in the AFC game. Surprisingly, the Pats are around. And the Bills their uncertainty has led them to this. So the Pats win this one, they're in the driver's seat, man. I know they play the Bills again. I know they have a couple more tough games on them. But if they win this one in Buffalo, you could sell me on them getting to the Super Bowl pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't know what their current odds are right now. I'm sure you can get them at a pretty decent price. The Pats to make it to the Super Bowl, they are the hottest team in the AFC at the moment. I think, what have they won, 5, 6 in a row? Is that their current streak? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I know they've won a handful in a row, and I know Mac Jones has been like on fire. He's been one of the most consistent quarterbacks in the league, which is very surprising. I almost get more surprised when he makes a mistake now than even when guys like Justin Herbert make a mistake, because he's been so up and down. And partially that's probably Belichick, right? Because he's coaching this team to play for a rookie quarterback who has all these skills, and he's really taking advantage of them. Their O-line is one of the best in the league. Their defense might be the best in the league right now. I know that might be a stretch to say, but I don't totally disagree with it. I just think they're one of the best teams in the AFC. And, I don't think this line is wrong, so I'm not going to bet it yet, but I think this could be a hell of a game. And I think what's going to happen is people are going to get beaten up during the day on Sunday. They may lose the Sunday night game because the Chiefs are laying 10 on Sunday night, so it's hard to bet that one. I think they're going to end up chasing this Monday night game, and it'll be interesting to see which way they chase it. I don't think this 2.5 is going to hold. I think it either goes to Bills -3 or maybe 3.5 if people are chasing on the Bills, or we get a line that's closer to 1.5 Patriots if people are trying to chase the dog here in this case and maybe even take the money line. So I'm very curious to see where this one goes throughout the week. Again, we're doing this on a Wednesday, so we don't have the benefit of the Thursday night game yet to see, what people start betting into the weekend. But I guess we'll find out. So that's our tease for the Monday night game of the week. Let's move on to our locks of the week. Both of us were 1-2 last week, so not our best work. I'm 15-8-1 for the season. Burke is a 7-17 for the season. I see you wrote gross next to that on our agenda. So he knows, but he'll get it back together. Don't worry, everybody. So let's start with you because we were just talking about it. What's your first lock of the week?
Well, we're just going to continue on the conversation we just had. Looking at the trend of the favorites starting to turn this thing around with Vegas. Again, I like the Bills primetime home crowd with a chance to get back in the race for the division that I feel is still theirs for the taking. As long as this line's under 3, I'm going to take the Bills on it. It's currently at 2.5, so I'm going to ride the Bills -2.5 to beat the Pats on Monday night, which should probably might be the best Monday night game on the slate all season.
Yeah, I was just thinking this is the first Monday night game in a while I've actually been interested in watching. And just to follow up on Super Bowl odds, so this is kind of crazy. The Pats are 11-1 to win the Super Bowl right now. The Rams are 12-1. So my Rams, which I've been betting all season, they've been down to 7-1, 8-1. They're now worse odds to win the Super Bowl than the Patriots. So out of the AFC, you have the Chiefs at 7-1. They're the favorites. You have the Bills at 8-1. Then the Ravens and the Pats both at 11-1. And then you get down to the Titans at 22-1. So it's really those 4 teams. So the Pats.
Well, with the Rams, you're also dealing with the loss of Robert Woods, and I think going with OBJ versus Robert Woods is a complete downgrade to the Rams, which is why you're seeing their odds start to shoot in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, but a wide receiver shouldn't really matter that much to me. So, if anything, I'm doubling down on the Rams now. If I get them at 12-1 again, I've already probably got enough more money than I should have invested in them. But I'm riding them all the way. But I thought I was interesting that the Pats are 11-1, considering where they were before the season and everything like that. That's pretty crazy. So Burke's on the Bills to cover 2.5 at home on Monday night. Don't hate that pick. My first lock of the week, we're going to do a little tease action. We haven't done any teases here in a while. So we're going to make our first lock a little favorites tease, leaning into our picks from earlier. And we're going to choose the Cardinals and the Vikings to make this tease. So again, teases are taking lines down somewhere between 6 and 7 points. So if you get a team -7, you can take them down to -1 or just to win the game outright. And you pay a little extra vig for that. So usually a 2-leg teaser of 6 points is a -130 vig. If you're going up to -7 points, you're going to pay around -143 or so. So you have to pay a significant amount to get 7. We're only taking 6 on this one. So we're going to pay -130 for this, which again means you have to bet 130 to win 100. And we're going to take the Cardinals down to 1.5 over the Bears. And we're going to take the Vikings down to 1 over the Lions. So the jinx on this is that they're both road teams. So I hate a 2 road team favorite tease because of the home field advantage. That's probably going to take place in one of them. But these home teams are just so bad. The Lions and the Bears. And we just saw them play the stinkfest of the year last week. I can't imagine either of these teams wins the game, whether they're home or away or playing literally anybody, even like Alabama. I think, you know what I mean? They're just so bad. They're so bad. I love the Vikings and the Cards to maybe even cover the touchdown in this spot, but I feel really good about having them on a tease. That's my first lock of the week.
Yeah, I think that's a good play. I think Kyler's supposed to come back from
Kyler's coming back.
His stint on the injury list as well. But he could be a little rusty, which I like the tease here. And the Vikings, they had a tough loss on the road. They got another road game against a divisional rival. I could see this happening, especially with the tease. Maybe not the lines the way they are, but the tease will definitely help your chances. My second lock, I'm going to play the Bucks and the Falcons under 50.5. I think the Bucks are the superior team of this matchup. I've seen the Falcons lay some eggs against some plus defenses and not be able to score on their end. And I think the Bucks just go and take care of business. I think the line right now is Bucks -11 on the road in Atlanta. Yep. Staying away from that, I just think that's a very peculiar number. But I don't think the Falcons can do enough to help the cause get to the over. So I'm taking the Bucks Falcons under 50.5.
Yeah, and I mean, it could certainly play out this way. We like unders this week, and that seems like a bit of an inflated total based on their last matchup. If you remember their last matchup, I do, because I had the Falcons on a tease up to plus 18, and they pushed somehow on plus 18, which is outrageous. But the Bucks had 2 pick sixes in within like a minute and a half of each other. So barring the Bucks D getting scores like they did last time, the Falcons just can't put up enough points. I really like that under here. I would even take it at 50, maybe even 49.5. If it goes up to 51 by any chance, I am just going to take the shit out of that, because, again, 51 is the most key number on totals that we can find. So if we see that go up to 51, I am absolutely killing the under. You might say, Ken, it's half a point. Why does it matter? It probably doesn't, because the odds of it landing exactly 50 or 51 are slim. But the odds of it landing exactly 51 are the most odds of any number in the world. I like it at under 50.5. I love it if we get it to under 51. My second lock of the week, Raiders minus 2.5 over the Washington football team. So again, I'm picking a home team in this case, in the Raiders, to cover a small spread, 2.5, over a bad football team in the Washington football team. We just saw Washington play the Seahawks on Monday night, right? Yeah, Monday night we saw, I'm trying to erase it from my memory. We saw the Seahawks play the football team in just one of the most awful, I feel like I say this every night anymore, one of the most awful games that I have seen. We saw a lot of flaws from Russell Wilson, to say the least. We saw a lot of flaws from the Washington football team as well, not being able to score more than 3 times. And, I just don't like them in this spot. The Raiders are the most inconsistent team that we have been betting on and against, but I had a lot of success betting them as dogs early. Should have bet them last week as a dog. I'm not going to make that same mistake again. If the Raiders can't cover 2.5 over the Washington almost football team, then, they don't deserve to be a playoff team. And the Raiders very well could be a playoff team with a couple more wins.
Yeah, and they've played well even after their midseason debacle with John Gruden getting fired and having to go with an interim coach. I think their only real screw-up game was against the Chiefs three weeks ago when Kansas City blew them out of the water. I do like the pick here, especially at home. Washington obviously down Chase Young for the rest of the year. One of their better defenders, probably their best defender. I think it's a good chance for Derek Carr to let the arm loose and get some big yards through the air to bring them to victory.
Yeah, hey, man, look, Derek Carr, if you're watching this, I'm talking to you, buddy. This is your time to shine, all right? If you can't cover 2.5 against the Washington football team, then you are not an MVP-level quarterback, which some people say you are. Then you are not a playoff quarterback, which a lot of people, including myself, say you are. So I know you're watching this episode, because Derek Carr absolutely turns into this podcast, along with probably most of the other NFL quarterbacks. So, hey, man, pay attention. Cover the 2.5. Burke, what's your third lock?
My last lock, this is a very peculiar line too. I don't really like betting high spread games, but I just think the Jaguars are that bad. I don't know if there's going to be some talks about Urban Meyer going back to college with the Notre Dame job still open. Could be another distraction. Rams are minus 13 at home against a very bad Jaguars team. Hoping Matt Stafford figures it out this week. They start to utilize their weapons. They get some more chemistry with OBJ, getting more reps. I know he had a big touchdown against Green Bay, his first as a Ram. I really think that the Rams could blow the doors off of this. I know their time's running low, and they got to make a move to potentially win the division and get out of the low spot for the playoffs. But I think this would be a good start for them. I think they cover this at minus 13 and beat the Jags by at least 2 touchdowns. It's a bold pick, but my record can't get any worse, so we're going to take some chances here.
Yeah, so I totally agree. If not now, then when for the Rams, basically. They should cover this 13 against the Jaguars. If they can't, then my Super Bowl pick is significantly on the line at this point. I think they should cover this one again. We're laying the faves this week. I said in the intro this line should be about 16. Getting it at 13 seems like a pretty good steal. So my third lock of the week is Denver and Kansas City under 48.5. I know this is moved to 47.5 in some spots. But I am taking it at 48.5 because that's what I got it at. It opened at 49.5, so we've seen significant betting to the under. Denver runs the ball at an alarming rate. They get into third downs at an alarming rate, and they also convert third downs at an alarming rate, which all leads to the recipe to extend the clock. And if they can extend the clock like that, I don't know that they can score 3 times. So if you're telling me the Chiefs have to score 6 times or 5 times, I don't know that that can be done. So give me this game under 48.5, probably still under 47.5. Teams coming off a bye also, out of the last 20, I think 16 of them have gone under. I know Andy Reid off a bye is probably a different animal, but give me this game under 48.5. I don't see any reason this game gets up over the total.
I agree. I think it's going with our play with the unders here, and I think Kansas City is a significantly better team than Denver. Also catching them, I think KC is the home team. I just don't think
they're
Denver
laying 10, which is a
again.
spread for me. I don't know that I like it.
This is similar to my Bucks Falcons pick, where I think the worst team, which is Denver and Atlanta, in these situations won't be able to do enough to score to help get to the over. So I like the under in both of these situations. So I'm hoping our locks go 6-0 this week, and my record at least gets to double digits in the win column. It's been 8 weeks, and I'm still not there yet. But we will get there slowly but surely, and hopefully we'll be able to make a profit by the end of the season. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, you'll get there, we hope. And we're both going to end the season on a positive note. And again, we're leaning into the unders this week. So if you see a total that you're not sure on, lean on. Again, it's not wise to just blindly take unders across the board. It's not wise to just blindly take, favorites across the board. But we do want to pick and choose our spots. So we want to make sure that we are taking the appropriate favorites and taking the appropriate unders. And we have that strategy. We lock into it, and we go from there. So hopefully these picks hit this week. So my locks, again, Cardinals and Vikings tease down 6 points. Take that at about a -130 vig. Raiders -2.5 over the Almost Football Team. Denver and Kansas City under 48.5 for the game total Sunday night. Burke likes the Bills to lay 2.5 against the Pats at home Monday night. Bucks Falcons going under 50.5, and then Rams laying a heavy 13 against the Jags, who have just looked god awful for the past the entire season, really. So there's the pros. Moving on to college. Are you allowed to talk college now after your debacle last weekend? Can we still do that? So Alabama getting 6.5 this week. I don't know when the last time we saw that was. Not recently.
10 plus years ago, I believe.
I am far and away inclined to grab Alabama plus 6.5, but I don't know what I'm doing. So you tell me why I'm wrong.
So just so everybody's aware, these are not official picks. They are what I am leaning toward.
They're not locks of the years, huh?
They are not locks of the week. But Georgia is by far and away the best team in the country. Even if they lose, they should still be in the playoff. We have never seen a Nick Saban team be an underdog in a situation like this in probably 10, 11 years. I think a lot of people love Georgia a lot. That defense is one of the best we've ever seen, but Saban's going to find a way to motivate his team. I feel he's the best coach in college football. I think he's going to keep this game close. I don't know how he's going to do it, but I just got to trust the Saban factor here that he's been in this situation. Well, he hasn't been in this situation before, but he's playing the little guy as opposed to or he's being the hunter instead of the hunted in this situation. I really like Bama in this situation. I'm not making it an official pick yet for the record, but 6.5 is a lot in an SEC championship game. Alabama is playing for their college football playoff chances here, which is also going to be a big motivating factor because if they lose, they are most likely out. They're not going to get any help. There's too many teams with one loss behind them that control their own destiny if they win out. I really think Bama is going to put everything on the table to try to win this game. I don't know what the money line is. I would consider that too, but for 6.5, I'm definitely leaning toward Alabama covering this, even though Georgia has been by far and away the best team in the country. And I was reading a stat, I think it was on Saturday. I was going through everything against common opponents this year for Georgia and Alabama. There were 4 teams, and my numbers may be a little bit off, but Alabama won all 4 of those games. I think it was a combined score of like 149 to 126. Georgia won against those 4 teams 134 to 23. They just gave up no points. So there's a huge spread there against.
Good stat. I love it.
There's a huge spread there against like opponents, but I'm leaning towards the Saban factor here, trying to motivate his team, and Alabama needing to win to get into the playoff, which is going to hopefully allow us to cover this spread here. But we'll see what happens, and if my thought processes change over the course of the week. But I'm leaning Alabama here. Couple other championship games that I'm also looking at. Again, no official picks, but Oregon is plus 2.5 versus Utah. This is a Friday night Pac-12 championship game. Utah blew the doors off of Oregon a couple weeks ago. I was the sucker of a bad bet there. Oregon, I believe, was 3.5-point dogs at Utah, and they lost by 30-some points, whatever it was. It is very difficult to beat the same team twice in the year, especially in college. It's a little more common in the pros, but college is very difficult to beat the same team twice. And they're playing within 3 weeks of last seeing Utah. I think Oregon finds a way to win this game. I don't know how, but 2.5, getting 2.5 right now is very, very juicy to me. So I'm looking at Oregon. And then Saturday, along with Bama and Georgia, we got the Big 12 championship, Baylor and Oklahoma State. I'm looking at the over here at 46.5. I know both of these defenses are very, very good, but I feel like there's going to be nerves involved. These 2 teams haven't been in a situation where they haven't dealt with Oklahoma to like get to the next level. I think they're going to be a little bit nervous. Defenses may give up. I think there's going to be a lot of trick plays here to try and spring some offense. I think the 46.5, although with the rankings of these 2 teams' defenses, it fits the bill. I think that they find a way to hit the over here. So I'm leaning towards the over. And then Iowa, Michigan. Do I let Michigan burn me 2 weeks in a row? Because I do not like them. 10.5 is a big spread. I know it's coming off of a monstrous upset of their arch rival at home. I think it could be a potential letdown for them, and the game's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think. Iowa's got a very, very elite defense, and I think this game is going to be very, very low scoring. I think the over-under is 43.5, which is outrageous for a college football game. I think Iowa can definitely keep it close. Kirk Ferentz has been in the Big Ten championship before. This is Harbaugh's first shot. 10.5 is quite a bit. I mean, Michigan proved me wrong last week, but right now I'm leaning toward Iowa covering this if it stays at 10.5. So just
I don't hate that. If the total really is that low, 43.5, then, they're anticipating a low scoring game. You're probably sitting okay taking the big underdog. In that case, I love that strategy, taking the big dog in low total games, because the odds of it staying around the total and the dog not covering at 10.5 are very slim. So betting analytics on that alone, Iowa plus 10.5 seems like value. I'm not going to do it because you cost me my retirement plan betting against Michigan last week.
Yeah, well,
listeners out there should get it together. Follow Burke this week. Bet Iowa plus 10.5.
You know what? Even though my lock of the year was incorrect, I still finished above 500 in college football.
He still had a good day. We're giving him a lot of hell for that, but he still had a profitable day. If you didn't say that was the lock of the year, we would have been praising you for your day. So good job on everything else. We like that. So again, Burke's college picks for the weekend. Are they you taking Bama? You said.
Again, all of these picks are leans. They are not official, but please follow.
That's good. We're a lean podcast, not a picks podcast.
Please follow us on Twitter at the Chalk Pod for my official picks later this week on these.
All right, so Thursday when you're listening to this, try to get some value on these lines. Burke's leaning this way, but hasn't formally picked him yet. Bama to cover the 6.5, Oregon to cover 2.5 against Utah, Baylor and Oklahoma State over 46.5, and Iowa if it stays at 10.5 over Michigan. If it goes to 10, do you still like it? Yes or no?
To be determined.
To be determined. 9.5. You taking Michigan?
Probably. This is
probably. So he only likes it at 10.5.
This is smelling like a 10-point victory.
It's smelling like a 10-point victory, he says. All right. So there's Berks College leans for the weekend. Tune into our Twitter to see those official picks. Probably Saturday morning. We'll tweet them out. Moving on to our other sport, basketball. We're in almost in prime basketball season. We're getting to like Christmas Day. Christmas week and Christmas Day is like the best time for NBA. It's when I really start to get into gear. Christmas Day, or NBA and Christmas Day, is my favorite sporting day of the year. I think it trumps the NFL on Thanksgiving Day even, because they put these 5 or 6 games back to back. They're all good games. They're going from like noon until 11 at night, and they usually have a pretty good slate. This year's slate is fantastic, by the way, so we'll definitely be doing some bets and some props for that.
Maybe we'll have to do a Christmas Day NBA parlay.
We are absolutely going to do a Christmas Day parlay. I'm going to have props and everything out there. FanDuel does this really fun thing on Christmas usually, totally unprofitable, but they do a really fun thing where they let you place $25 on the first basket scorer of the game. So if you bet 25 on Embiid to score the first bucket of a Sixers game, you get your money back if he scores 25 points in the game. So we usually do that on every single game. And we never hit it, but it's something fun to do. So more on that later. We'll definitely get to that. But just a little brief overview of the NBA. If you're looking at lines, perusing night by night, some teams to ride recently. I like the Nets, I like the Nuggets, and I like the Bucks. So I really like the Nuggets tonight. I think laying 6.5 in their game. I don't know if the Bucks and the Nets are playing tonight. I haven't looked at everything, but the Bucks have been really, really good. The Nets have been really, really good against inferior opponents. They're like 500 against playoff teams, but they're something like a 900 win percentage against non-playoff teams. So if you ever see the Nets playing, somebody like the Pacers, somebody on the fringe like that, or the Wolves or the Rockets, somebody at the bottom of the West, they're going to cover that game. So be sure to bet them on that. The number will be high. It'll be between 7 and 12, but they will probably cover that game. The Nets have been incredible against that, and Durant and Harden are only going to get better together. I saw a quote from Harden the other day that he's trying to figure out what his role is out there. He's really downplaying it because he's played pretty well, and Durant has really figured out basketball. Not that he didn't have it figured out before, but his true shooting percentage is over like 80% this year. It's just insane the way that he's able to rise over anybody and get a bucket at any time. And that really shows against these bad teams. So look to capitalize the Nets covering against bad teams. And then the Nuggets and the Bucks are teams that I just think haven't found their stride yet. So they're going to be undervalued in lines. Joker's coming back for the Nuggets. I know they just lost Porter Jr., and that's not a great injury for them. And Murray, their second scorer, is out too. But Jokic has shown that he is enough by himself. He's one of the, transcendent players that we've seen up there with the Giannis's and the Durants and the LeBrons of the past 10 years. He's getting there. He's coming off his MVP season. He's the best passer in NBA history. He scores at a crazy rate too, especially for his position. He kind of does it all out there. So I don't think that team's getting valued quite enough. And then the Bucks, they still have the best player in the league in Giannis. They still have one of the best coaches in the league in Bud. And they still have one of the deepest units in the league, even though they're missing a couple of guys. Drew is a great defender. Middleton is an underrated second fiddle. I just don't think the lines have adjusted on those two teams quite enough yet. So they're going to be favored in a lot of these games, but don't look away from them. Try to take them. On the other end of the spectrum, teams to fade, I'm liking the Warriors, the Suns, the Bulls, and the Lakers. And I know you're going to say, Ken's just fading the Warriors because he hates them. Yes, that's true. And that's why Burke's betting against Michigan too. But you could still be right. So the Warriors and the Suns have had the easiest schedule in the NBA so far. So the lines are not going to reflect that because the Warriors are 18-3, and I think the Suns are like 17-4 or something crazy like that. But they've had the 2 easiest schedules in the league, and Golden State has played the most games at home so far of the season. So they might win these games, but they're probably not going to cover them because the lines are going to be overvalued. So those two teams are going to regress back to the mean. I would look to fade those teams. The Bulls are another one. They're like 3rd or 4th in the East right now. They're a great team, but they're losing guys, all right? They're going down on injuries. They're still going to win some of these games because of the talent they have. I think Lonzo's a phenomenal point guard. I think that, DeRozan is a phenomenal mid-range player. I think they have a lot of guys, but I don't think the lines are going to catch up. I think they're overvaluing them just a little bit. But keep an eye on that one because I could be wrong there. If I'm wrong anywhere, I'm wrong there. And then the Lakers. I saw a win model the other day that projected the Lakers to get 29 wins in the regular season. 29 wins for the Lakers. That's crazy. Right now they're 11-11 or 12-11 after last night. So this model thinks that they're overperforming. I'm inclined to agree that they're overperforming. I think they'll get more than 29 wins, but I do think that they're overperforming at the moment. Anthony Davis, by all measures and statistics, has been one of the worst players in the league this year, one of the least efficient players in the league this year. He's actually his shooting percentage is low enough and his true shooting percentage is high enough that it kind of coincides with him just, I don't want to say being lazy, but settling for these bad shots. And that's leading to a lot of empty possessions for the Lakers. So, I just think that they're overvaluing a little bit. So those are my 4 teams to fade: Warriors, Suns, Bulls, Lakers. 3 teams to ride: Nets, Nuggets, and Bucks. Take them for what it's worth. We'll probably regroup on this in a couple weeks. You've been watching any NBA or not really?
Not really. I do know the Suns just played Golden State. Obviously, I'm a big Steph Curry supporter.
Yeah, that was a great game.
He's been going off the chain the entire season so far. I'm really excited to see Clay come back, see those two back together again. I think it's going to bring a lot of excitement, at least in the West. It's a shame LeBron's going to be out for the next couple of weeks, next set of games. But I'm not really big early season NBA fan, but once Christmas comes around, I'm going to start to focus up on it a little bit as the NFL regular season dies down and the amount of games for that starts to dwindle. I'm going to have to resort my focus to another means, and the NBA could do it until March, which we all know is college basketball season.
The madness, right? All right, so we'll get into the NBA in a couple weeks. We're almost there. It's almost the best time of year for sports. NFL playoffs, NBA heating up. December, January, it's a great time. So we want to leave you with a couple words of wisdom like we do every week. 2 notes that we want to hit on this week. Number 1 is trend betting. So what we do a lot of the time is bet either for trends or we bet against trends, okay? So I like to look at let's take the NFL. I like to look at teams that won last week that are overvalued this week. So that's going against a trend based on a result, right? What some people like to do is look at teams that have been winning and that they think will keep on winning. So they're betting for a trend. So do you have a lean? Do you bet against trends? Do you bet for trends?
The way I've been betting, I guess, I catch on to trends way too late. And by the time that happens, it's trending the other direction when I do place the bet. That's just the way it rolls. But if you can hop onto something that you see ahead of time before really it becomes public knowledge, that's the best chance. And it's all in the research and it's a lot of it's analytical too. You got to really dig deep into the numbers to figure that out. But if there's a way that you can get ahead of a trend before it happens, I do, at least for college basketball, I do look at against the spreads and the teams that have the better records against the spreads throughout the course of a season. A lot of teams have like 9-10 games under their belt now. You're going to start to see me gravitate towards those teams to continue to cover against the spread. Eventually it will come down, but a lot of teams you can get at good profit who finish in like the 65 to 70% range against the spread throughout the year, that you'll be up.
I guess that's something I was trying to say too on trend betting is if you identify a trend that you want to fade and you end up being wrong, that doesn't mean you are wrong permanently. That means you were wrong this week. So if you see a team that has won 4 straight and you think that they are not as good as their record indicates or the lines are wrong and you bet against them and they win again, feel free to bet against them again. You might have just been 1 week early. You could certainly ride that trend or oppose that trend for 3 more weeks, right? And same deal on the other end. If you feel a team has been winning a lot and they're going to win 1 more or they're going to keep going, feel free to bet on them. And if they win 1 more, you could step away, all right? And you can just see if you're right on that trend. Don't be afraid to take your wins just as much as don't be afraid to incur a loss so that you can incur more wins later. We see this a lot preseason. So you get really high on a team and they lose week 1. The Bills, right? They lost to the Steelers week 1. If you just had bet on the Bills week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you would have done all right because they kind of rolled for about a month there. So don't be afraid. Like just because you're wrong once does not mean you're wrong about the trend in general, I think. And I think that's a key takeaway. The other, did you have something? Sorry.
Nope. I agree. Like the Packers were a very similar situation. They got blown out 38-3 in week 1 against the Saints and then strung off 6-7 in a row. So if you keep betting with them, you know that they're a good team. 1 hiccup's not going to change your mindset.
Yeah, I guess the key is like stick to your guns, right? You're not wrong just because you're wrong 1 week. You might be right for the next 6 weeks. So don't step away from it because you'll just feel worse about that. The second tidbit we want to leave you with is betting player props. And I don't know how you feel about this, Burke, but routinely player props are guessing. So if you're betting, and I made this bet and you made this bet, so we're both on this train. If you're betting DK Metcalf over 64.5 receiving yards in a Monday night game, you're guessing. Why is that line 64.5? Just because it's a number in the 60s, right? More often than not, he will land way above that or way below it. He's rarely going to land 62 to 66. So that number is not correct. It's just that he's going to either go above it or below it, if that makes sense. So we are guessing, and we guess wrong. We guess terribly wrong. Where you can find value in player props is lines that are off. So there was another line on Thanksgiving that we addressed and we tweeted out. That was David Montgomery's 78.5 rushing yards. He was never getting 78.5 rushing yards. That line was wrong. So we bet under that. There was another line that we addressed on Twitter. Deebo Samuel over 6.5 rushing yards a couple weeks ago. He got 78 or 79, something crazy like that. That line was wrong. Those are the player props that we want to identify. So us betting DK over 64.5, that's a guess that he's going to have a big game. And we're almost better off, which I did this too, betting him to go over 100 yards in that case at a much better payout. Because if he gets over 65.5, the chances that he gets close to or over 100 are just as good as him getting what he had, which I believe was one catch for 13 yards, which is crazy.
Yep, nearly cost me a fantasy matchup, that's for sure.
Yeah, he did nothing. And that'll happen. So we just picked the wrong receiver. We should have picked Tyler Lockett. Because Tyler Lockett's prop was around the same. I'd argue it was even lower. I didn't look at it, but it's probably somewhere between 57.5 to 61.5. And he ended up with the 7 grabs or whatever for 119. So our logic was right. One of them broke out. We just picked the wrong player. So What do you think about that? If we're guessing on these player props, we might as well just alt it all the way up because the chances are the line is not correct. He's either going to go way over or way under this. And we just want to identify these lines that are flat out wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we've been hammering Leonard Fournette over receiving yards the last couple of weeks, and he's literally all Tampa's been doing has been running screen passes. Now, I know why the line starts off so low. It's because Leonard Fournette used to have stone hands and could never catch a ball out of the backfield. Now he's in an offense where they're starting to utilize the running backs as receivers more than what he was accustomed to in Jacksonville, where he would just line up in the eye and just get the ball from Bortles. Completely different offense. And we've been profiting off him quite a bit because Brady loves checkdowns. He loved checkdowns in New England with his
and we've been pitching that. We pitched that last Monday night too.
It's just a new name. Lions haven't caught up with the way the Bucs have been running the offense. Again, Fournette had a monster game too, so he's starting to become more and more of a focal point as these defenses start to take away Evans and trying to take away Godwin. He's been having big games too, but Evans has been hit or miss depending on who they've been playing. But really, if there's like a significant, if you know how teams are going to play on offense and who they're going to get the ball to based on the defensive personnel they're going to be facing, those are the props you kind of have to read ahead of time, identify what that line is. And again, if you feel like DK Metcalf can go over 64. If he's going to hit that chance, he's probably having 2 or 3 monstrous plays. He's not going to catch 10, 11 balls. He's one of those straight down receivers. You can get him at 100 and make even more money off of it. So just identify, again, you got to do your research, but identifying offensive trends versus defensive tendencies in certain matchups can really help you identify which player props to hit and which ones to stay away from. That's for sure. Yeah,
that's the idea. Like we would have lost DK under 64.5. We would have lost him under 100.5 too. You might as well play the one with the higher reward, right? I know it's a big difference, and he could theoretically hit one and not the other. That's why the payout's different. But we're looking for lines that are wrong. So typically, you're not going to find me betting a lot of receivers in the 60s, 70s because that's typically right. They could very well go under or over that. But last year, for a good example, Steph Diggs was like 72.5 for a while, 73.5, and he was routinely in the high 80s, low 90s. So when you get a line that's that wrong, you look to play it, and when they adjust, then you look to back off. And again, that probably goes to our first thing of getting ahead of these trends, right? Finding these lines before they go viral. Lenny Fournette's receiving total has been 25, 26. and he's been over that in like,
by halftime.
80% of his games.
By halftime, he's hitting those.
By halftime, he's hitting those. So, look for these lines and where you can get value. So that's it. That's our words of wisdom for the week for you. Hopefully we hit some of these bets. Thanks for everybody who tuned in on Twitter. I know I've been hearing from a couple people. We had a little bit of a technical audio problem, but that's all right. We'll get this straightened out next week. Thanks for everybody tuning in on YouTube and Spotify. And we'll be back next week with a new episode. And until then, let's go make some money.
Let's do it.